the modern contractor is like a fucking Jedi. Like he just knows the right things to say, or she, right? Knows the right thing to say, how to say it. They really have a good bird's eye view of the social order, the landscape, can calculate what the outcomes are going to be, how people are going to behave and react.
Seeing the matrix, basically.
Bingo. Oh yeah. So how the hell do I define that? Contractors, friends, welcome to the Modern Contractor Network. This is the Modern Contractor Roundtable, and I have Craig Ethan Gibbons. Craig is an expert in communication. He teaches these skills to people like you and has been teaching it for the last 11 years. And we finally got him in one place, and there's just so many questions to ask him. And we started getting into it at the beginning, right? I had to stop it because a lot of interesting content was falling out. So we decided to get into this intro. And Craig, welcome, dude.
Thanks for having me, dude. I really appreciate the time and love talking to you. So let's get into it.
I think this is going to be fun. Because I have been going crazy trying to, how do I put this? Try to define or prove that charisma is something that can be taught. Now, just to back this up a second, there was a little bit of a debate that's been kind of going on one of the last podcasts interviews that I did with Eric Triplett, and the discussion was, in the contractor world, this might not resonate with you, but just to give some context, was knowing your numbers versus learning how to talk, which is more important, right?
Ooh.
Knowing your numbers and knowing how to price, or is it learning how to talk? And we're like at the fundamental, like at the baseline here, right? What's more important? And I think that the answer was learning how to talk. So learning how to talk is charisma. You teach charisma. Can it be taught?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, the podcast is over. Done. Now let's unpack this.
It's interesting.
Let's unpack
this. Well, I actually kind of want to say, so my dad is a contractor. So I kind of see this a little bit from the side of cool. I get to see it a little bit. And my dad's one of those people, he's complaining today about having to go, do his paperwork and knowing his numbers. And it's his least favorite thing. And my dad is not a modern contractor. My dad is a baby boomer contractor.
Got it.
But he's he's a very social person. His biggest issue is being a nice guy. It's too hard. Collecting, that's a rough one, but you got to be assertive, right? You gotta put your boundaries and be like, hey, this is what I expect and everything. But anyways, I get to see it from that side, from knowing a contractor personally, who's actually very social.
So perfect. So. Okay. So how do we unpack this? This charisma can be taught. Some people, it's natural, right?
Well, you're born with it. You are born with it. So if thinking about, so what we've done is we've taken peer-reviewed research in behavior science, psychology, neurology, and really kind of fleshed it all out and worked with experts in those fields, from expert psychologists and behavior scientists and stuff. And we built out this curriculum at this company that I work for called Jaunty. And we built out this curriculum to teach these skills. But what we found through these scientific studies is that the behaviors of really charismatic, socially dynamic people are actually stuff that everybody's born with. The things that we associate with charisma, like having strong eye contact or being able to take up space, or being loud and open body language and stuff like that. If you've got any kids in your life under the age of 4, you probably notice they're all doing these things. Kids take up a lot of space, right? They'll tell you what they want. They're very assertive. And
that's a good point.
And they're having a good time. But what happens is, over the course of your life, there's conditioning, there's imitation, There's, genetic components that affect your anxiety levels and things like that. But there's all these things that cause you to like slowly close yourself up and become less charismatic, or what we would call high social status. And when I say high social status, I don't mean like you got a yacht and a nice watch. I mean like internally, you got good vibes. You're really good with people. People see you from far away and go, "Oh, I would want to talk to that person." That's what charisma is, and we're all born with it. But over time, it just kind of like, gets collapsed in upon because of our life experiences.
Okay, so learning how to talk, learning how to be charismatic, learning how to communicate with people and be attractive and be able to, lack of a better term, seduce, like not in a sexual way, but to seduce people into liking you and like selling and that sort of thing. Where do we start? Where does the average person start in learning these skills, or relearning these skills, should I say?
Well, I mean, the average person is learning it from like their life experience and imitating the people around them. But if you don't have good role models, like how do you really work on this stuff outside of like intentional personal development? When it comes to looking at your social life, I think it's important to kind of do an inventory and think, all right, like what is missing here? What am I doing right now? What are the results that I'm getting, and what do I need to change? Right? Do I not know what to say in a conversation? Am I afraid to ask for a favor, or or do I not want to collect on invoices or something like that? What is going on that is stopping me socially? And then when you take a look at that, then that's when you can start digging into it even further. And a lot of the time, the thing that's holding you back is you have social anxiety around something.
I can appreciate that. Thinking of it, digging into what you're saying, especially, asking for money or asking for anything, or constantly feeling like you need to please, or putting the customer, in this case, on the pedestal, and not being assertive.
Yeah, the assertiveness is huge.
It really
it's the biggest
is.
social skill set, most important social skill set, in my opinion.
Dude, I would totally agree with that, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it's not really something I've pulled out of this thing before until now. Because being assertive is where a lot of contractors have their first failures, right? And that's kind of where a relationship, the structure of a relationship between customer, contractor, or contractor colleague starts to fall apart right away. Is the contractor always feels that in order to maintain a good relationship, I have to give, I have to appease, I have to, agree, and that's where they make promises that they can never keep, say yeah to things that they never intended to do or never wanted to do, agreeing to things that they know that aren't right, and start getting themselves into trouble that way, right? And not having the confidence. And would assertiveness have a lot to do with confidence, in your opinion?
Yeah, totally. I think assertiveness is the fastest route to confidence. If you can practice being assertive and develop a mindset of assertiveness, you will be confident in most situations. The thing is, assertiveness is a style of communication. It's expressing yourself while respecting the other person. And it comes from this mindset that as long as I have good intentions, I'm responsible for myself, and other people are responsible for themselves. So I'm responsible for what I say, think, and do, and other people are responsible for what they say, think, and do, as long as I have good intentions. If I don't have good intentions, that's manipulation. It's no longer assertiveness.
I like that.
But most people, there's the other style of communications that we all see every day, which are passive, aggressive, and passive-aggressive. And most people are passive. And this is actually something we've evolved around. We're supposed to be leaders and followers, right? Where humans are a social species. So passive is what most people are. And it's because they want to, it's like, okay, I'm just going to follow. I'm just going to, if somebody else is going somewhere and doing something and telling me to do it, I'll just do it. And that's going to help me get along. The idea of being,
stay out of the way.
Yeah, the idea of being passive is just going with the flow and trying to preserve your relationships and make sure that, nothing bad happens there. But the problem is that, well, one, we tend to hold in our problems when we're passive, and then we eventually explode. That doesn't help with your relationships. And two, you take responsibility for other people's actions. You take responsibility for other people's behaviors. You mentioned an idea of like taking on more than you can actually accept, or not being able to delegate because you feel like you have to do everything yourself. Like that's a passive mindset, and that's only going to hurt you because, anybody who owns a business, anybody who's a contractor, anybody who's working a big project, if you can't delegate, you're really screwing yourself because you're putting way more work on your on your plate, and you're showing that you don't trust the other people around you that you're working with, whether it's a partner on a project or a team that you run. You're showing that I don't trust these people, therefore I have to take on the responsibility here. And if you're able to delegate, that is literally showing, hey, I trust you to do this. Can you do this for me? And if they're, obviously if they have a good relationship with you, they're going to do it. They're going to work hard and try to get it done. And then if they need to be corrected, then there's another assertiveness skill that you can use of giving corrective feedback and inviting dialogue instead of, hopefully instead of yelling at people and getting all heated. But yeah, the main thing here is like, if you want to be a good leader, you have to be assertive.
What you mentioned about blowing up eventually.
Yeah.
Right? Holding it on and blowing it on. And that is like a common theme.
I can imagine.
It's something that like, I couldn't explain how many times relationships and contracts fall apart because of exactly that. A contractor or both parties weren't assertive, weren't confident, didn't know when to say no, in a polite way, right? And eventually it led to them, losing control over their emotions, which is where, emotional intelligence comes in. And assertiveness seems to be kind of a part to play in the larger, emotional intelligence thing. It's a word that we've heard a lot about, but really to break it down, maybe you can give us, a little bit of an understanding of what emotional intelligence means exactly.
Sure. Yeah. I'll make the distinction. Like, assertiveness is a set of skills, right? They're tools that you have in your tool belt, and you use them when necessary. You don't have to use them all the time. Sometimes it's okay to be passive. Like, if somebody's yelling in your face, sometimes it's okay to be passive and just be like, all right,
True.
I'm going to take it, and then, walk away till this person steams off. But emotional intelligence, I mean, you're going to be using in that moment when you're holding back and not, exploding back on somebody. Emotional intelligence is in 4 steps. Emotional intelligence is the ability to become aware of your own emotions, taking a step back, listening to yourself and going, okay, I'm feeling a certain way. The person I'm working with said this thing to me and I'm pissed. Why am I pissed off? Is it something to do with how I perceive he's treating me? Is it something to do with he said something to me that's kind of just hit a tender spot, and I'm just feeling my ego is a little bruised or something like that, or something, whatever. So taking awareness, why do I feel this way? And then really pushing back and kind of taking a bird's eye view or a bigger spectrum view and going, all right, I need to regulate my emotions. How do I respond in this situation? So the second step after awareness is regulation of the emotion. Do I explode? Do I run away and cry? Do I sit there and just sit with the feelings and figure out what I'm going to do from there? Okay, probably going to be something like that. And then from there, because you're able to regulate your own emotions, because you understand your own emotions, you gain this better understanding of yourself. You gain more confidence in yourself. And then you go into your interactions with other people. And because you have this experience with yourself, you see when other people are responding emotionally. And you're better able to empathize with them. You're better able to understand them and go, I remember when I was feeling this way, maybe this person is feeling this way because of X, Y, or Z. So it starts getting into not like mind reading, but kind of empathy and kind of getting to understand how this person might be feeling. And then from there, you can understanding that person's emotions, understanding why they might be feeling the way they might be feeling, you can strategically interact with them and kind of take the pressure off, show that you care, should give some reassurance, whatever you need to do to make sure that relationship navigates towards a positive end. So that's emotional intelligence.
And how does emotional intelligence differ from social intelligence?
So emotional intelligence, like I said, is like that. It's mostly internal, right? And it's a tool to be used within the greater scope of social intelligence. Social intelligence is drawing people in and getting them to get along with you, basically, the simplest version of that. So being charismatic and being able to navigate the social landscape in any sort of social environment, whether you're at a party or you're on the job or just talking to somebody in line at the grocery store, like being able to know what can I do in this situation and how can I take it into a direction that I want, right? How can I turn this person into a friend, turn this person into a new business, a business connection, or even, just diffuse this situation because these two people are getting angry at each other. Whatever it is that you're trying to figure out how to do. So using emotional intelligence is just kind of like a plug-in within the greater scope of social intelligence.
Now, aside from that, and thank you for that, there's all kinds of little tricks and things that I know that you teach, paying attention to eyes, facial expressions, body language, like that kind of thing, which seems kind of like daunting on the surface almost, right? Because it's an area that we know about, but to have really deep understanding of it, it seems to take a lot of study and understanding. But is it can it be simplified in any way?
Totally. And people take my master class, and we have this 6-week class where we go intensively into each of these skills. Every week we pick a topic like approaching strangers or humor or assertiveness, right? And we go into these different subjects and we practice different skills around them and then do the homework throughout the week. But the idea is when I'm usually getting a question from somebody, my response back is always a question. It's always, what's your intention here? Because the simplification of everything, it all boils down to what is your intention? And do you have this intention of thinking that you have this mindset of scarcity, this mindset of what we call low status? It's coming from scarcity and emotional insecurity, where you're like, this is going to go badly, so I'm going to act from this place of trying to save something bad that's going to happen, versus, oh, this is totally normal, this is a good thing, let's go towards it in a positive manner. And that's coming from a place of abundance or a place of high social status, emotional security. So the charismatic person, the high status person, is somebody who you want to lead you, is the person that you want to be around because they got their shit together and they are confident in what they're doing. They're like, we're supposed to be doing this right now. It's okay that I'm giving you this corrective feedback. It's okay that I'm pissed off at you and that you're pissed off at me. Let's talk about it and figure something out, versus let's emotionally react back and forth and create more tension and more drama, right? It's all about how you go about it and what is your intention there. And that's the main thing. It's is my intention that I'm trying to control you, trying to control the situation, the outcome, or is it that I'm trying to make a better connection, get to an understanding, or get the project done?
Well, there's like the element of, yeah, or am I trying to control you? But then there's people that just seem to be able to not control people, but control the circumstances around them, like the situational awareness.
They want to, well, so most people are passive, and they want to control how people perceive them. So right. I will control the situation so that it makes me look good, or so it doesn't cause tension between me and the other person. I always give the example of like, my roommate's not doing his dishes and I'm really pissed off that he's not doing his dishes. What am I going to do about it? The passive person is potentially even going to like do the dishes for him. They're not going to do anything, or they're going to like take responsibility for that person's actions so that they can try to manipulate how that person perceives them. Oh, we're still good friends. But it's like, are you really good friends? Because you're not able to share what you're thinking assertively, versus, you know, like an aggressive person might be like, do your damn dishes or I'll break them over your head or something like that. Right? It'd be very different.
I feel like one evolves into the other. Like, I mean, you're describing like 90% of the people. They're passive, right?
And and you're Canadian,
but
right?
They're explosive. I'm Canadian.
Isn't there a lot of passive aggression too?
Yeah, not in Toronto.
It's more on the West Coast.
Yeah, maybe. No, but I mean, generally speaking, look, I liken a lot of people in my life, but just people in general, to the emotional intelligence of children. Almost literally. And I see it all the time, and you know, they're almost able to be manipulated like children in a way too. Like their behaviors are so predictable. You know, an angry person is the easiest person to manipulate. And it's not really the manipulation of it. It's just understanding, you know, the reaction that you're going to get is so easy to predict, like very predictable, right? But like in saying so, you know, there's a lot of people that are passive. It always, or almost always leads to aggression or some level of blowout or blow up. There's a video that went viral, you may have seen it, of a tile installer or a contractor absolutely freaking out at a customer, took a hammer and just started smashing
the tiles.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, dude.
So he's like, you don't appreciate any of this work I did. Bam, bam.
Well, he wasn't getting paid,
okay,
right?
Gosh, well, shit.
Yeah, well, for sure, right? He wasn't getting paid, and he just totally blew up. And he's like, you know, this is mine. I have all the receipts, and he just started smashing everything in her house. And like, in my mind, and I was talking about this with Eric on another podcast, and we both agreed, like, that contractor's wrong. Like, he may be right on the surface, and I realize, like, a lot of people
can identify.
Yeah, like, they can relate to it. They're like, yeah, you know, you're doing something I always wanted to do, so it goes viral, right? Sure. But like, the truth is, underneath it all, is that a lot of things had to happen for it to lead up to that, and you know, one of which, he obviously priced the job way too low, and he didn't have the profit tolerance to be able to handle.
And he didn't release the pressure in the balloon. He let it just pop.
Bingo.
You know?
Yeah, and I try to explain this, you know, to my children. This is why I'm making that relation to children, right? Is that when you feel something, or you don't feel right about something, you got to let it out, right? You have to say something about it. You can't just keep quiet and move on, because it does build up, right? You need to relieve the pressure as you go, because by the time it does come out, it becomes a surprise to the person that you're reacting to, because they weren't aware of or didn't see it coming. So what happens in that case is they respond with more aggression. And then things just escalate.
And one of the problems that
right?
we have is that we expect them to know what we're thinking.
And expectation is a big part of it, right? Like, a lot of the times, I've always said this, is that if you find yourself disappointed in somebody, it's a you problem. You have not managed your expectations of that person correctly.
Yeah. The world is a mirror.
Plain and simple. It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so a lot of, you know, how to handle, you know, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, like, a lot of how to navigate the world socially is an internal problem, right? Like, it's can it all be resolved within yourself. Like these are skills that you learn, and they reflect out there in the world, and the type of relationships that you end up having with people are, a mirror of your personal resolve, your personal growth, right?
Yeah, and they say be the change you want to see in the world, right? It's like, oh, I'm so angry that you're not telling me this thing, or I'm uncomfortable that you're doing this, that, or the other, but I don't tell you. I won't put it out myself, right? Like, getting mad at somebody for making a request of you, right? Like, do this to, or like, you've got to do this responsibility by the end of the week, right? Being like, this is so upsetting, but like, you wouldn't express yourself and say, hey, I can't do it. Or you wouldn't express yourself and like be okay with asking someone else to do something for you, right? It's usually like this kind of set of rules that people create for themselves. This idea of what we're supposed to be doing socially. And I see this, I used to see this a lot. I had this roommate in college who was like this. He had this idea that he lived in like the 1950s, like in a movie or something. Okay. And he's like holding the door open for women and like, my lady, like, what's going on? He was like that type of guy. And it was kind of silly and fun, but it was also like that kind of went deeper into like believing that people are supposed to interact in a certain way. And everybody has this frame of mind, this idea of how the world works. And the problem is it's not what reality is. Whatever you think is possible is not what is totally possible.
You're right. And your perception needs to be challenged. You need to be able to open it up and challenge it. And that, like, I joke around with it, how a lot of people feel the need to be the teacher of all things good. Like, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Like, you just
it's like, is that your ego? Yeah. Yeah.
And it is, isn't it? It's like,
I have to be.
She said this. Who does she think she is? Or who does he think he is saying this to me? I'm going to teach him. Watch what I'm going to do. Right. And they just end up making the whole damn things worse.
As long as you video record it and put it on the internet, it makes it better, because then we all can laugh at it. That's reality TV.
Then it's all, then it's valid. And then there are those like that joke that are freaking Jedis, and like they could just turn any situation into a good situation, even if it means involving a third party. Somehow they could turn any conflict into an opportunity, not just for themselves, but for all parties involved. They're freaking Jedi masters. How do you describe those people? Because I'm trying to describe them as a modern contractor. That's what they can do, right?
We call it the jaunty Jedi, or like just like socially intelligent. I mean, or social dynamos. I mean, I've been in a few of those situations myself where it felt like for people around me felt like it could have been the end of the world, but then kind of navigating my way through it, because if you have tension between somebody, it doesn't have to be, it's not all collision. It's not all like, boom, everything explodes and then there's nothing that can be done about it. It's usually like, there's usually an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and ask a question and get to know what the heck is going on from the other person's side. Like, why are they acting this way? Or why, what did I do? Let's figure this out,
That's powerful. I like that. Because as you describe it as tension, right?
Yeah, social tension.
But it can manifest in two ways, right? It can manifest as an explosive bad situation, or it can manifest in a very positive, opportune, moment for all parties involved.
It
really takes that creativity.
If we react immediately, if we respond immediately to a social situation or any situation, yes, we respond habitually. It's a habit. It's no longer a choice. So the idea is to slow things down. You just gotta slow things down and put a wedge in between your feelings and your responses, and go, do I need to respond in this way? Is this the right thing for me to do? I'm on the job with you, and you call me over and start yelling at me or something, telling me I did something wrong. I could get defensive. I could show a negative emotion. And by the way, that's not the right way to go. if you show the first person to show a negative emotion loses any social interaction.
Always. Yes.
But if you're able to just go, okay, I feel this way. Let me take a step back, listen to what they have to say, and go, all right, there are some blind spots here. Let's figure out how to go about this. And it takes skill. It takes some practice. You got to be in some of those difficult situations, and you got to screw up sometimes, right? You gotta say the wrong thing. You got to offend somebody. You got to lose a client. But through that, you're going to learn, and you're never going to have to do that again. You're never going to have to lose that client. You're never going to have to be in a situation like that again, where or maybe get fired or whatever it is that's going to cause that tension, or a result of all that tension and doing the wrong thing. But really taking a step back and going, all right, so what's going on with this person? Let's look at what's going on with this person. Let's talk about what's going on with me. And just bring it to the table without any sort of judgment, with just like, I see what you're saying here. I listen. I'm listening to what you're telling me. It's not my, whatever my intention was. Let's figure out how to go about this now. Versus, I did it. What are you talking about? Like getting really defensive.
Exactly, and that's the immediate response. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
I've always said that there's an elephant in the room, and somebody's got to point it out, right? There's a hidden, like, what's your intention? First of all, what's your intention? What, by your reaction, what do you expect the outcome to be, and what's the reality of it, right? And the reality is that there's an elephant in the room. There is, somebody doesn't feel heard, right? Or somebody is like, there's this something there that's causing this situation. Is to point the reality out of it. And usually that uncomfortable thing, once you face that demon and you bring it out into a conversation, I feel like you get to face that head on with the person that you're dealing with, right?
Let's turn it, instead of us fighting, let's turn it into something we solve together. It's a puzzle.
Bingo. And there's a reality here that two people aren't seeing, that two people aren't looking. It takes one to really point it out and say, I think I know what the problem is. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is it this? Is it that I said this? Or is it that this happened and that led to this? And really just point it out, right? And usually that just causes that release of tension and gives two people something to
a lot of the time people don't even know.
Other than attacking each other.
A lot of the time people don't even know why they're angry. Because emotions are in a different part of the brain than like cognitive processing. Like, the way that we analyze things, that's all in the upper brain. Whereas, and this is where what we use most of our brain for. Language is here. This is where problem solving is. But that's not where emotions are. Emotions are in the middle and the lower brain. So like this, the midbrain is like where the amygdala is. This is where a lot of like interpersonal emotions and relationship stuff is. And then the lower brain is where fight or flight, fear, anything around survival. And that, if somebody is anxious, they'll act a certain way. If they're in fight or flight mode, they'll act a certain way. Like they'll get aggressive, they'll get defensive, whatever. And if somebody feels like you're hurting, there's something wrong with the relationship, and that's the midbrain stuff, they're going to feel like fight or flight too. They're going to feel, because a lowering of social status, a breaking of the rapport of a relationship for most of human existence meant that you're going to face some physical trouble, right? You get thrown out of the village.
Right.
So we're kind of evolved around that. But we haven't changed because we've only lived in modernity for a couple hundred years, and it takes a little bit longer to get used to that type of thing. These changes.
I like that word.
Yeah, right? Like,
I like that word. Is it made up or is it a real
word?
I think
it's a real it means okay. Modern era, right? Like we've only been around, like there's this idea of Dunbar's number, which is you can not handle more than 150 relationships. You cannot manage more than 150 relationships because most of human existence, like 99% of human existence, humans lived in tribes of no more than 150 people. But now we don't do that. Since about 10,000 years ago, we've lived in cities and we've lived in bigger towns and stuff, and then we got industrialization, and now my hometown of 9,000 people is now 20,000 people, and I live in the New York City area, and that's 8 million people, right? I can go every day a week to the same place and maybe not even see the same people, but I might see 300 people a day, right? So we can't really process or manage this idea that if somebody doesn't like me, it doesn't actually negatively affect my survival. So if there is a challenge to this idea that we have harmony in our relationship at work or at a bar or anything, we feel scared that we're going to lose our social status, and therefore we're going to get kicked out to fend for ourselves. Kicked out of the village and fend against the wolves, or maybe even worse, it's like Game of Thrones and they're gonna slit our throat or something.
Yeah, I guess so. It's really ingrained in just the way our brains work. That's interesting because, like, wow, right? Like, I'm thinking about it, and it really all comes down to those two words, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and like, to take that emotional intelligence, just like separate yourself from that situation, like pause. Like, I feel like this, pause. Okay. Always. It's not going to kill me. Let's talk about it,
So I love this because, like, we're trying to, I'm trying to define, the charisma and try to understand whether it can be taught and all this stuff. And everything that we're talking about, it all comes back to that one thing, which is everything, is the ability to be emotionally intelligent, the ability to manage your emotional state like a Jedi. Like everything stems from that. If you can control the way you feel about something, and that's the only thing that we can ever control, isn't it, Craig? Like, we can't control our lives. We can't control our future. We can't control anything. The only thing that we have
is how you respond to
is
your
how
own
you
emotions.
feel about something, isn't it?
Well, like, and it's really how you respond, because you could feel it. Like, you ever do meditation? I've been getting into learning about Buddhism and spirituality and stuff lately.
Definitely.
And like, meditation's not about clearing your mind of those thoughts. Like, oh, I got angry, or I got upset, or I'm scared, and whatever. It's kind of like, those thoughts are there and they're passing like little clouds, and you're just like noticing them until they go away, because your emotions are not forever. Your emotions are temporary. And so you say something to me, I get upset, sitting with that and going, why am I upset? How, like, kind of observing it and just figuring it out and realizing
by that time,
because what we do is we zoom in on it. We zoom in on it and go, it's everything. But if you take a step back and go, no, it's not. I got to do laundry later.
It's just a floating cloud.
I forgot to check the mail,
that. Like, that's...
and it's all these things. And then eventually, it floats away. And you're like, oh, if I would have responded with that zoomed in perspective of like, this is the only thing that matters right now, I would have done something rash. I would have been violent. I would have been, I would have totally destroyed my relationship here, versus just taking a second.
You would have destroyed someone's bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. That
and video recorded it.
And that's only hurting him, dude. That's only hurting him.
Big time.
He's never going to get another job again if they know who he is. And you know what? He spent all that time doing it. Like, he must have put in 100 hours, putting the, or whatever, however long it took to tile that bathroom, and then he just destroyed it.
Probably. Yeah, and which goes to my question is, what did you expect the outcome to be? Well, the truth is you didn't, because you were too angry. You had no foresight. You were... And also he didn't assert himself, right? He's already angry. He didn't let the air out of the balloon. He's already filling up this balloon, getting ready to pop, and he's already thinking about, like, I should be getting paid more. Well, you chose the price. I mean, and you were, maybe there's a scarcity, right? There's some scarcity of like, I need to get this client. I need to do it because I don't have enough, or Of course.
But to feel entitled around that, and like,
yeah, But again, that need to get the client is an emotional thought. Like you're acting on an emotional thought. Like at the end of the day, like here this guy is that, you know, destroyed this bathroom while he's being recorded with his logo on his shirt.
Oh no. Oh. And it's, I mean, this poor guy.
And
everybody deserves a second chance, in my opinion. But
at that moment, he was, as I was describing, he was the teacher of all things good. He felt the overwhelming need.
He was. It's his ego. It's like I'm right. You're wrong. I need to show you, and I need to make you wrong.
Dude, so we all got to ask ourselves and pay attention. When was the last time you did this? When's the last time you behaved in a way that was totally irrationally dictated by your emotional state? And how did that affect your relationships? And if you can control that, you know, feeling of anger, nervousness, you know, like any emotional
this happened
state.
To me on Monday. I'll tell you.
Tell the story, please.
So I was traveling for the holidays, traveling home. My flight, I ended up missing it because it was a series of things. Like I had to wait in line at the ticket counter to check in my dog and my bag. And they're like, oh, go to the other counter, even though there was no signs saying. So I had to go to the end of the other line after waiting in line for like 30 minutes. I'm like, crap. Okay. So I get to the front of the line, I check in, and I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to go. I run over to the security. It's an hour and a half wait or whatever in security. I wait an hour, get to the TSA guy, and he's like, he looks at my boarding pass and goes, this isn't your boarding pass. And I'm like looking at the time. I've got like 20 minutes. I've got like 20 minutes to get there. I'm like, oh my God. And this is where I would have lost it. But I stomped my foot on the ground. Like that was the hardest. I was like, because I can't do any. This guy, he didn't do anything. He's just telling me, and I just want to like scream right now. I was just like,
You're just a guy. He doesn't know your story.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, man, like you don't know what I've been going through. So I ran back to the ticket counter, and I'm like, look, here's what happened. Here's what happened. Please, like I'm holding in, screaming at them. Like I almost never want to fly on this airline again. I'm just like, please, something happened. This is the wrong one, and I just had to wait in line at the TSA. Blah blah blah. Dude's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get that for you. He prints out a new one and then walks me to that guy. I skipped the line. Dude. I had to wait another couple minutes, and then I get into the line to put my X-ray through the stuff through the X-rays and stuff, my carry-ons.
Yeah.
And my thing gets pulled aside again. My thing gets pulled aside again. They're looking through my luggage. I'm like, oh my God, just get me to the gate. I need to get to the gate.
Yeah.
And I finally get there, and the plane is still there. Everybody's on the plane. They're not letting anybody else on. And I'm like, is there something you can do? Please. But I wanted to like wring these people's necks. Like I was just like,
what's crazy, if they read that in your body language, they would have responded to it negative.
Oh, I had to like,
they would have not wanted to help you.
I had to like put on the show of like, I'm so upset. Like, please, I'm so upset. Not like I'm angry, but I'm like distraught. Like I had to express that, because most of the time anger is just a cover-up emotion. It's the mask that we put on to fear. It's the mask that we put on to sadness.
Interesting.
And anger is easier to feel angry than it is to feel easier. Incompetent or left behind, or like I said, like sad or afraid. Right? It's easier to be angry and get defensive because that's what keeps you alive in a survival situation.
Interesting.
But yeah, when it's just missing a flight, I mean, I thank God I didn't have like the tightest schedule in the world, and I was like, okay, I can just like come back tomorrow. Thank God I had backups. But like, had I felt like that, I could have been like, no, I could have been like slamming my hands down and like being the next person on TikTok, blowing up at somebody.
And you'd be teaching all kinds of lessons.
Yeah, absolutely.
To TSA agents and everything.
Oh yeah, it's all about me. It's all about me. I was just like, no. Right? I'm like, please. And you know what? I ended up getting extra leg room on the next flight. So
that was
good.
What I'm hearing right now is, if to any of you contractors or anybody listening out there, if you really want to learn about social like emotional intelligence, do it in an airport. That's
in an American airport. Go through the TSA.
Do it. Deal with the TSA. You get out of that thing, you are the Jedi.
Oh my gosh.
You are the jaunty Jedi. Tell me about jaunty. What is it?
So yeah, we teach classes in communication skills. We help people with social anxiety, and we turn people from nice guys and gals into great men and women through social skills. So we teach stuff like assertiveness, like emotional regulation, like approaching strangers, being more charismatic to have better conversations, drawing people in. People come to us for the purposes of business, like professional, with networking and public speaking and things like that, to personal, making friends, dating, being able to just chat with somebody in line at the grocery store. And so I've been teaching this stuff for about 11 years, and I used to be a student myself. It was something that I overcame, being like super socially awkward, socially anxious, and I wanted to get on board, and that's part of my story.
Very cool. So you're the proof.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. I'm number one testimonial, I guess.
And you're being interviewed on the subject.
Yeah. I'm such a nerd. I had to, like, even before I took the class that I teach, I was reading the science. I was watching videos. I was trying to experiment. And then I came and met Eric, my business partner, and he taught this class, and he worked with, his best friend is actually a behavior scientist. So we got him in our pocket, kind of. So then we had some other therapists and psychologists and stuff, and they built this curriculum. And over time, it's iterated as new research has come in, and I've been able to add to it as well. But it's this curriculum that's based on dialectical behavior therapy, which is exposure therapy. Getting exposed to the social tension, putting yourself into like a mildly awkward situation and learning how to deal with that, and using skills to deal with that, and using assertiveness skills or approach skills or conversation skills and relationship skills, and like putting this all together, developing as a person socially.
How do you put yourself into an awkward situation? Like, are we talking like tuck your skirt into your underwear on purpose, or like what? How do you?
So
that?
I mean, we start with we want to do it in a safer environment. Like there's no consequences. Let's get on a Zoom call and practice in the class, in a real in-person class. We're practicing it, and then it goes into let's have some homework. We'll start with something like keeping eye contact with somebody until they look away, or practicing a conversational skill in your everyday conversations, and opening your body language, slowing things down, right? Building up awareness, really. And then over time, we add newer things. And as you're learning how to like approach strangers and start conversations, that helps you practice the skills so much faster, because the more people you meet, the more opportunities you have to practice these skills. And being assertive is like the thing I preach the most. And I'm glad we got to talk about assertiveness, like most of this podcast.
Yeah. May I propose taking the final exam in an airport?
I highly recommend that, or at a protest.
Or at a protest.
That happened to me too. That's another story.
That's another story for another podcast.
Exactly.
So how do people find you? How do people find your course?
Yeah.
Like you have a free course out there, don't you?
Yeah. So if you go to my TikTok, it's at Craig Ethan, CraigEthan. There's a link in my bio, and at the top there is a free attraction course. It's 4 videos, I think almost an hour long total. And all you do is just give me your email,
Ooh, I see.
No, I don't try to spam anybody. I actually don't even do one email a week. I gotta get better at that. But yeah, you just put your email in. I'll send you the course, and you can watch that and comment on it if you want. If you have questions, let me know. My DMs are always open. And then if you want to check out the other stuff I do with Jaunty, it's jaunty.org. So jaunty.org. And yeah, that's all I really want to promote for right now.
Craig, what are the chances of getting you back? Because as soon as we stop pushing record, I'm going to think about something.
Yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely.
I should have asked them, especially when we're doing the editing. Then something's for sure I'm going to want you.
Of course, dude. Anytime. I love podcasts. I love long form conversation. So
yeah, well, you didn't hesitate to say yes, so I'm happy about that.
Hey,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, dude. Subscribe to the Modern Contract.